Rabbi, Yossi, everyone else who came. Okay, we're holding here in the Gemara Mesechta Megillah Daf Chav Gimel Amid Aleph 23a, and the Gemara is now finding not logical sources for the number of aliyos on every specific day we read the Torah, but rather it is finding scriptural sort of sources, mini sources, or reliances, something we can rely on as a source for how many people are called to the Torah on a specific day, any given day we read the Torah. We started off with 3, 5, and 7. We brought down how the Jewish kings had 5 advisors, 7 advisors, and the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, had 3 treasurers. Everyone had to go through in order to enter the Beis HaMikdash, Holy Temple. So we have 3, 5, and 7. And on Yom Kippur, we have 6 aliyos, 6 people called to the Torah. The source of 6, we explained already before that it's because on Yom Kippur you have more stringencies than a regular holiday, which has 5 aliyos. But that's just the reason why you have more than the previous day. But is there also a proactive reason why you should have 6 aliyos on Yom Kippur? So the Gemara will now bring a proof, a reason why you have 6 aliyos on Yom Kippur. If you have an Art Scroll Gemara, it's 23a2. Amalei Yaakov Mina LeRav Yehuda. Yaakov of Mina usually means a heretic, but here he cannot have been a heretic because he's brought down over here in the Gemara, in Mesechta Megillah, as well as in Mesechta Avodah Zarah. So perhaps Mina is a name of a place where he came from. Tosfos actually changes the word over here. Instead of saying Yaakov Mina, it's called Yaakov Mitza'a. Yaakov Matza'a, a matzah is someone who makes rugs, matzah, a mat. So the Yaakov, who was his living was someone who made mats. So either he was from a place called Mina, or he made mats for a living. So Yaakov Mina says there's actually a proactive reason why we have 6 aliyos, 6 people called to the Torah on Yom Kippur, which is Kinegin Mi. Who are the 6 aliyos on Yom Kippur corresponding to, corresponding? Amar Lei, Rav Yehuda answered back to Yaakov Mina, Kineged Shisha Sha'amdu Mimina Shel Ezra, the Shisha Mismoilei. There were 6 people who stood on Ezra's right, and 6 people who stood on Ezra's left. Just to give some context, and actually a little bit of Tanakh trivia, the word with the highest gematria in Tanakh is over here in Nehemiah, and different forms of saying this word, Hatir Shasa. Tir Shasa. And sometimes it spells it with extra tufs and extra shins. Tir Shatasa. It means a governor. Nehemiah, he was appointed by royal decree of the Persian king, he was appointed governor of Israel. And Ezra was appointed, Ezra and Nehemiah together were appointed governors. Ezra was the more prominent governor. And many times Nehemiah, when he refers to Ezra, he calls him Hatir Shtasa, the governor. And he told them, this is when the Jews are going back from all their exiles to rebuild the second Beis HaMikdash, and they built a wall, doors for the city of Yerushalayim. And here are the children of the provinces which were exiled by the Nebuchadnezzar, the king who destroyed the Holy Temple. And now they return to Yerushalayim, to Yehuda, everyone to their city. And he gives a long, long list of names, many families who return to their cities. Now, There's still yet to be built. Completed the Beis HaMikdash. It was built in a rudimentary style. Ezra gathered all the Jewish people who were then living in Yerushalayim and Jerusalem and people from all over, and he gathered them together to reaffirm their dedication to the Torah. They're coming back to the Holy Land of Israel based on the Torah. Because, of course, our only right that we have to the Holy Land of Israel is the fact that the Torah told us the land was given to us by Hashem. So everyone rededicates themselves to the Torah. And Ezra has a list of, he stands in the middle, and many elders of the Jewish people stand on his side. And he stands in the big square, the big plaza, that's in Yerushalayim. And they made a special wooden platform for him. And here's what it says. Vayamid Ezra Sefer al Migdal Eitz Asher Asul Davar. Ezra the scribe, he stood on a big wooden platform, like a bima, that they made for this purpose. Vayamid Etzloi, and standing next to him was, let's count, Matisyahu, Shema, Anaya, Uriah, Chilkiah, Masiah, al Yaminoi. On his right, you had 6 great people: Matisyahu, Shema, Anaya, Uriah, Chilkiah, Masiah. On his left side, he had Pedaya, Mishael, Malkiah, Chashum, Chashdabana, Zechariah, Meshulam. However, between the word Zechariah and Meshulam, if you look closer, it does not have a vav. Rather, Meshulam was a second name of Zechariah. Some say it wasn't his second name. Rather, Meshulam is a description. He was a last. Now, you know, we have an American flag. The rule is, whenever you have an American flag with a different flag, it goes on the right. If you have 3 flags, the American flag goes in the middle. Now, when an important person is walking, and he has 2 aides, so the most important, the person walks in the middle, his assistant to the right, and the second to the assistant is to the left. Ezra is now standing on a wooden platform in front of the entire Jewish nation to recommit themselves to the Torah. So he's standing with all the dignitaries of the time. So Ezra, of course, is the greatest. He's in the middle. He has on the right 6 people, which we named them over here: Matisyahu, Shema, Anya, Uriah, Chilkiah, Masiah. On his left, he has also 6 people: Pedaya, Mishael, Malkiah, Chusham, Chashbadana, Zechariah. And so the lowest of the 14 people on stage, because you have Ezra in the middle, to his right you have 7 dignitaries, and to his left, and the closer you are to Ezra in the middle, the more prestigious you are. So the last one on the left, which his name was Zechariah, even he, so the 15th person on stage was Meshulam. Meshulam means Shalem, he was complete. And he had no sins, he was a complete tzaddik. He was on a very high spiritual level. And also, some say Meshulam means a man of peace. And this took place on Rosh Hashanah. It says over here, it was Echad B'Chodesh HaShvi. This took place on Rosh Hashanah. Here, B'Yom Echad B'Chodesh HaShvi, on the first day of the 7th month. So on Rosh Hashanah, Ezra had 6 people to his right, 6 people to his left, and he's reading the Torah. As it says, Ezra opened up the Sefer Torah in front of everybody, and as soon as he opened the Sefer Torah, he's on the street. It's like Hagbah, when you lift up the Torah for everyone to see. And so everyone stood up and bowed down to Hashem. When it's an important thing when we do Hagbah, when Torah is lifted up, everyone should stand up. During Torah reading, we said better to stand up if you have the power. But during Hagbah, when the Torah is lifted up and shown to everyone, we see from the Tanakh that we must actually stand up. So even on this, the 15th, the 13th to most prominent person on stage was named Zechariah Meshulam. And similar idea, the Malbim adds on over here. It says Ezra, it says in the Medrash, was as great as Moshe Rabbeinu as Moses. And it says that if, let's say, the Torah was not given after the Jews left Egypt through Moshe, it would have been given through Ezra. That's how great he was. He was the one who brought the honor and the glory of Torah back to its greatness. He made Torah great again. Even Mordechai was there with him, right? But Mordechai was a great leader of the Jewish people. He inspired them. But the one to teach them Torah at that time was Ezra. And he was the one who instituted about reading the Torah on Mondays, Thursdays, Shabbos Mincha. And he was the one who divided the parshas. And everything we're discussing now falls back to Ezra. We said Ezra is Malachi, which was the last of the prophets. And Malachi is one of the shortest books of Tanakh. Only 3 chapters.
The Sefer Avadiah is the shortest, only 1 chapter.
Correct. Malachi is only 3 chapters, and the very last verse of the last chapter, so this is, again, Malachi is Ezra, says, Hine anochi sholech lechem es Eliyahu hanavi, behold, I'm going to send you Elijah the prophet, before the great day, the awesome day, when Hashem will redeem the Jews. Eliyahu Navi will come, Elijah the prophet, to announce to the Jews that we're leaving Galus, so we're leaving exile. And what's the point of Elijah coming? He will make everyone do teshuvah, return. He will make the fathers return to the children, children with the fathers, everyone return to Hashem. So this is Ezra. Ezra is the one with the ability. He's the one who says specifically about Elijah the prophet coming to return all the Jews to their source. So on Yom Kippur is a day when we received the Torah. The Torah was given on Shavuos, but then 40 days later, when they're supposed to receive the 2 luchos, they sinned. Took 40 days of doing teshuvah. On Yom Kippur, Hashem came down with the 2nd luchos. So we had 2 givings of the Torah. The first one on Shavuos, second one on Yom Kippur, which is the one that lasted.
And which one is that came on Yom Kippur?
Yom Kippur. Those were not broken. The one that came on Shavuos, those tablets were broken. The entire Torah was given. It had to be redone. So just like Ezra, and he says he got the entire Jewish nation to do teshuvah, return to Hashem. Those who marry non-Jewish women all return to Hashem. And Ezra, talking about his greatness, so being that it's a special day of Yom Kippur, is connected to Ezra, the idea of teshuvah, and who says, he will send Elijah the prophet to make the Jewish people do teshuvah. Interestingly, the Rebbe says, one of the 13 animamins, the 12th principle of faith of the 13 principles of faith is animam emunah shlema v'yas HaMashiach. I trust with complete coming in the even though you may tarry, I eagerly await his coming every single day. Now, if Eliyahu, a Navi, has to come before Mashiach comes, how could I await Mashiach's coming every day? Say, I wait Elijah's coming every day, in order that we should know that we're 3 days before Mashiach. So how can we await how could the Rambam write that I wait his coming every single day? Seemingly, we need an event to happen 3 days before. And the Rebbe says, we see what the Rambam is ruling for halacha is, Rambam is a posek, that Elijah the prophet already came 3 days ago. And he already stood on Har HaZeisim. And he already announced that Mashiach is going to come. So maybe we weren't merited to see it physically. At least everything that the effects, meaning the point of Elijah coming is to make everyone do teshuvah. So that is there. That already happened 3 days ago, and we were already expecting Mashiach today. And so every single day that Mashiach didn't come, 3 days before that, Eliyahu Navi was already announcing that I'm going to come. So literally we already have everything. The announcement of Eliyahu Navi is already happening. So therefore, corresponding to these 6 people who stood on the right of Ezra and the left of Ezra, we have 6 aliyos on Yom Kippur. Yes.
So the Torah was given on Shavuos, Then after the Torah was given, should we sin?
We sin with the golden calf
So no, actually what happened was first the Torah was given, and then Moshe Rabbeinu went up
to the mountain to learn Torah from Hashem. And they came back on the 17th of Tammuz with the tablets, with the two luchos, and that's when the luchos were broken.
And so what it was that Moshe Rabbeinu was learning actually, details on the mountain before.
So the first set of luchos had just the 10 Commandments. The second set of tablets, which came on Yom Kippur, had in it the entire Torah Shabbat Peh, entire oral Torah, written at least in Rashi Prakim, in head points. It had the entire Torah, and it came much with the second luchos. It became much more than with the first luchos, and that took place on Yom Kippur. So let's read it inside. So the 6 aliyos on Yom Kippur, 6 people called to the Torah, correspond to the 6 people who are on Ezra's right and 6 people on his left. Shenemar, as it says, Vayamid Ezra HaSofer Migdal Eitz. Ezra the scribe stood upon a platform made out of wood, Asher Asu Ladavar, which they made for this big convention of the Jewish people. Vayamid Etzloi, and standing on him on his right was Matisyahu, Shema, Aniya, Uriah, Chilkiah, Masiyah. Al Yaminai on his right. Mismeli on his left hand was Pedaya, Mishal, Malkiah, Chashum, Chashbadana, Zcharia, Meshulam, and Meshulam. And the Gemara says, Hani Shiva, Hayahavu. Seemingly on his left side were 7 people, not 6 people. And the Gemara answers, Hainu Zcharia, Hainu Meshulam. Zcharia and Meshulam are actually the same person. Meshulam. Why is it called Meshulam? Because it comes from the word Mishalem, Shlemut, the Mishlam Ba'ovdei. He was a complete tzaddik. His actions, everything he did was complete. He was a righteous person through and through. So even the least important person on the stage in front of the entire Jewish people, even him, he was the most completely righteous individual through and through. Question is, why not 12 aliyos on Yom Kippur? If he had 12 people standing with him, I'm sure the Gabayim would like that. You can have twice the amount of donations, right? You auction off twice the amount of aliyos. But Sister Chaim writes that you're only giving aliyos corresponding to those on the right, because those on the right are more prestigious than those on the left. The Chaim Sofer writes the other way around. Those on the left of Ezra were greater than those on the right, because just like when we bow down, Oisa Shalom, we take 3 steps back. We first bow to the left because you're facing the right of the Shekhinah, the right of Hashem. Hashem doesn't have a physical hand, but it means the right aspect of Hashem. So those on the left were more important. But at any rate, even the last one, lowest one, was very important. He was called Mushlam. He was complete in everything that he did.
This is obviously, I still think that one of them is already out of the theory for these.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's continue. Tanu Rabbanan. So there's a bar mitzvah teacher which teaches bar mitzvah lessons, a parsha. I'm sure all of you know him very well. Just not going to say any names. That he one time, he was told by a certain family, which weren't, they just wanted to do bar mitzvah, but they didn't know the dates. They didn't look at the dates on the calendar. And they told him, well, the bar mitzvah parsha of their son is a certain bar mitzvah parsha. Could you teach it to them? And he taught it to them. And ended up being that they were only looking at the secular date. The family was looking at the secular date, not the Hebrew date. And really, this boy was not bar mitzvah till a few days after that Shabbos. So he's not able to be a Baal Torah, to learn the Torah. So you have all the preparation that he's been doing to learn a parsha. You know, maybe should have rather been learning the halachas of tefillin, halachas of and other things. But the parsha, at any rate, that he was learning, he was not able to read on Shabbos, and the family was very, very upset. They thought that it was a bar mitzvah teacher's fault.
But it was their fault.
And I think he said he never got paid from them after all of that. Yeah. What ended up happening is that you have the 13-year-old boy, but minus 12, by a couple days. Comes to Shabbos, and they already booked a caterer, and they already booked all of his relatives to come in from out of town.
Holy moly.
So he ended up happening was that he read just maftir in the last aliyah, because you don't need a gadol, you don't need an adult to read maftir. Even a child could read it. The maftir and the haftorah is valid even by a child. Doesn't have to be the balkaire.
Is it still acceptable now today?
So that's halacha till today. We don't do it to begin with,
But
but it's acceptable.
You read the Maftir in the Torah,
In the Torah.
and then he read the half Torah also.
And then you read the half Torah also.
It's interesting.
But it's acceptable to be done even by a katan, even by someone who's not bar mitzvah.
But he didn't get an aliyah, did he?
He got the aliyah of maftir.
Oh,
Because
okay.
we say kaddish between the 7 aliyos and maftir. So therefore, that's separating between the original takana, the original institution, but Moshe Rabbeinu to get the aliyah to read the Torah on Shabbos, and the half Torah, which was added on only much later when there was a decree that the Jewish people cannot read the Torah, so they added the half Torah instead, the prophets, and later on they could read the half Torah and they kept the Torah as well.
The larger says it wasn't even the parents' fault, which it sounds like they were so cut off from tradition, that there's certain things that did occur to them. It's like strictly speaking, it was their fault.
Right. So the maftir, when we call up all these people, we call for an aliyah 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, is not including the half Torah, not including the maftir, the last one, and the half Torah. And this is our Gemara is going to discuss this idea. Who could get an aliyah? Could a child receive an aliyah? And could a woman receive an aliyah? I know there's certain let's say woman of the wall or things like that, which are more into the headlines in many ways. I'm not sure if they were learning this Gemara. I'm not sure they were learning this Gemara before staging all their publicity. And if they did, they probably wouldn't have staged that publicity. But could a woman receive an aliyah? Says Kavod HaTzibur, the honor of the congregation. Enough. What? Maftir, yeah. Maftir aliyah. Even if yes, it will be a Gemara which we discuss. A very important thing is going to be Kavod HaTzibur, the honor of respect for the congregation. You have to respect them. There's many things that we do out of respect. Just like we learned before, one of the reasons we don't add aliyos, more people to be called to the Torah on Yom Tiv, is people have to get home for their Yom Tiv meal. Reason why not to add aliyos on days of work, on Rosh Chodesh or other days of work, is because people have to, or at least on Monday, Thursday, is people have to get to work. So it's a very important thing is you have to respect the congregation, not to hold them extra time in shul, and to do everything for them in a respectful way as well. I meant to bring this up a long time ago, but this is something that's called Only in America. Only in America will you see, like you see here on the screen, you can see it, the law offices of Kohen, Levi, and Israel.
Inclusive.
Very inclusive, right? But oh yeah. So let's start off reading just the Gemara, and then we'll go on to Kuntres Um in the session. Our sages have taught in Ebraisa. Hakol oilin leminyan shiva. On Shabbos, we call up 7 people to read the Torah, 7 aliyos. V'afilu katan v'afilu isha. And talking strictly from the Brisa that we're quoting, even a child who's not a minor, who's under 13, And the Mishnah Brewer writes from this Gemara, you can learn that this is specifically when 7 people are called to the Torah, which is on Shabbos. But any other day, a minor, someone who's under my mitzvah will not be able to be called to the Torah. The Mishnah Brewer brings many Achronim, which says that nowadays the practice is that we don't call up a katan, a minor, to the Torah at all, except for maftir, fast aliyah, which could, you could call up a katan, a minor, and there's conditions. It has to be someone who understands what the Torah is and who they're reading the Torah, etc. Afilu isha, afilu katan, even a woman, even a child. A woman, Hashem gave her many mitzvahs, but the most important mitzvah was given to the woman, which the men don't have. Because of that, women do not have to do many other mitzvahs. They don't have to sit in shul and hear the Torah being read, etc., etc. And they don't have to sit and learn Torah the whole day and night, which the men have the obligation. When you go to a shul and hear the Torah being read, you're fulfilling your obligation of learning Torah. But a woman, it would be allowed to read the Torah. The sages said, "Isha lesikra b'Torah b'nei kavod hatzibur." Woman should not read the Torah in public because it's not respect for the congregation. If a woman is called up to the Torah, it gives you the impression that none of the men in shul are able to read the Torah. It says that the entire congregation is not available. The entire congregation is not able to understand Torah as well. The Magen Avraham writes, on a weekday, you cannot call a katan, a minor, to the Torah. A woman reading the Torah in public could be a very big tznius problem of what's called kol isha. The voice, a man is not allowed to hear a woman sing who is not related to him. If, for example, you're in a place where there's nobody who knows to get an aliyah except for 6 adults and 1 minor, what should he do in such a situation? So the Rishonim discuss what should be done. Should he call a katan to the Torah? But it says a isha, a woman, was never someone who received an aliyah at all. Now, what happens if the only one who knows how to read the Torah is a woman? So for some reason, you have 10 men who came together. None of them know how to read Hebrew. And only one who knows how to read Hebrew is a woman. Could she read the Torah for everyone? Could she be the Bakare?
Would anyone know the difference?
Probably not. So actually, Rabbi Yaakov Emden does say that in that case, a woman would be allowed to read the Torah. But that's, again, these are exceptions to the rule. What it boils down to is when Moshe Rabbeinu said you should read the Torah every Shabbos. So when Moshe Rabbeinu did that, he didn't say how many aliyos have to be given at every single time. So technically, if only 1 male adult received an aliyah, you could say you fulfilled what Moshe Rabbeinu enacted, the fact that you could read the Torah. And once you did the main thing, so everything else you could say is sort of extra. And there are conditions which the Magen Avraham brings down. Magen Avraham is a pirush on the Shulchan Aruch, that if the first 3 people to receive an aliyah were a gadol, were men who were adults, and then the majority, like only 1 or 2 would be a child, and it would still be okay. The Iran writes, this is only in the times of the Mishnah, when there was only 1 blessing said on the Torah, the blessing before the first one and the blessing of the last one. But today, that every single person receives an aliyah, makes their own blessing before Not sure what happened there, but fine. So that's tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And Mirza Hashem, tomorrow is Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
And Friday will be Mirza Hashem Shiur, hopefully the Rabbi Darren. Yeah.
But it actually makes sense, actually, in this case, actually.
So but the next Gemara, the topic of the next Gemara is going to be about the maftir. The maftir, the one who receives the last aliyah, and how do you say? Everyone assumes that it's the most important aliyah, and we're going to actually have we'll see in the Gemara to see is maftir the most important aliyah, perhaps it's the least important aliyah. We're going to have a discussion about that that's going to be our next Gemara. So let's continue now with Kuntres Um. If you okay. So in Kuntres Um, we're holding in Maimer Chaf Zayin, second to last Maimer, and we're holding in the paragraph which starts off with Zehu Shekasov. Coming up to the end and breaking down very much to the basics. You have a Jewish man, working individual, goes to shul, davens a minyan, doesn't, tries to, he means to do good, he's too busy with working. He says, I'm too busy to work, too busy working in order to connect to Hashem. And that's exactly what we're saying over here, this entire Kuntres, that you're never going to earn a penny more or a penny less than what Hashem decided for you. What the only thing that could change is that you could earn a penny less in the physical sense if you don't dedicate yourself to Hashem. Do what Hashem wants, because we're judged every single day how much we should receive based on what was decided for us on what the budget was in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But every day they budgeted out again how much of that we're going to receive in a physical way. And if you're not deserving of it, it will stay for you in the world to come. And there's a shtus. Your animal soul is always at odds with your godly soul, and your animal soul many times dims the excitement of your godly soul. And therefore, a person has to awaken inside of themselves, from deep inside of themselves, what has to do, which is in today's Chumash, which is in tomorrow's Chumash, yesterday's Chumash, what's called the Shittim, the Shtus, the spirit of folly, the spirit of temporary insanity, so to speak, which one musters up when they sin. In that same way, to muster up that same spirit, what? Temporary insanity, like, yeah, thank you, Rabbi, Mr. Nadich, just playing Rabbi Josh Gordon, Rabbi Shub and Yaman Gordon, today's Chumash. Right, the temporary insanity a person musters up. It's called the Chachma, the level of Chachma of their soul. And that is a Mayan. Mayan is a stream, a wellspring, which we explained 2 paragraphs ago. This is the depth of a person from deep down. Chachma means curiosity, the knowledge, the desire to know more. And someone who has a level of Chachma they have a desire to know what's outside of them. It's not about me, it's about what's outside of me, what's greater than me. That is a level of Chachma, which Moshe Rabbeinu was the epitome, a pinnacle of Chachma. And everyone could summon that up from inside of themselves in order to not follow in the ways of the Nefesh Habahamis. V'zeu shekasuv, and this is what it is written, Umayan yatsa mibeis Hashem, and a wellspring from the house of Hashem will go forth. What does it mean, house? A house is something which surrounds you. The idea of a house is something that surrounds you. there is something that's called makif and pnimi. Pnimi is inside of you. Makif is something surrounding you. We learned this different mamarim, which we learned before. It generally means there's a godly light which is more custom made to the person, and then there's something which is not custom made to the person, and it's infinite, it's great. For example, you have your clothes surround you, your coat could surround you, but it's made to your size, your measurement. Something too small or too big wouldn't fit. A house is not made to your measurement. A house is not built having in mind how big the person living in the house is, unless you're talking about a giant person, which you have to build a massive house for him. But houses are built for beauty, for practicality, for everybody. It's not custom made to any one individual. I don't think they had me in mind when building this room. And this corresponds to two different lights or radiances coming from Hashem. One is a pnimi, something inside of you, and one is a makif, something outside of you. And a makif itself, you have something surrounds you which still has a connection to you, like a clothes or a crown, which is called makif, the king's crown, which is higher than the king. And the king, in spiritual terms, you have chachma, wisdom, bina das, knowledge, the partzuf, you have the face, which are the 10 Tiferes, and the keser is a crown which is on top of it. It's level of keser. In keser itself, you have two general levels. The lower level called arich, the higher level called atik. Arich is arich anpin, the large face, meaning all the Tiferes. You have the idea of Tiferes, but in a great way, in an arich way. And you have atik yomi in ancient of days, which is much, much greater. Keser, the chitzonius keser, the external part of keser is called arich, the lower level, and the pnimius keser, the higher part of keser, is called atik. Atik means netak, we've had before, detached from this world. So the Beis Hashem, the house of Hashem, what is a house? It's explaining every verse in spiritual terms. A house is makif, surrounding the person, but not in the person's measurements, but rather far away from the person. And that is pnimius keser, the inner part of keser, which is the level of atik. You have two levels in keser called ratzin and tainug, desire and pleasure. The lower part is ratzin and desire. When someone wants something that causes them to change their minds, right? The same reason, for example, Hashem wanted to destroy the world because people have an evil inclination. The same reason, right afterwards, Hashem said, I will not destroy the world anymore because people have an evil inclination. Beforehand, destroying it because they're following the evil inclination. Afterwards, how's it their fault? They have an evil inclination, right? That's why before the flood and after the mabul, after the flood. Higher than keser, higher than ratzin, higher than desire comes tainug, pleasure, and the ultimate pleasure is so great that you don't experience tangibly that pleasure, and that's the idea of pnimius atik. So you have Beis Hashem, the house of God, pnimius keser, the inner part of the level of keser, level of atik. A mayan, a wellspring, goes out from there. What did we explain a spring is? Which level? The level of chachma, wisdom, which always, just like a spring, to be a kosher spring can never stop, has to constantly be bubbling, giving forth water. Chachma never stops. A person's mind never stops. It's always moving, always constantly in action. And it comes from deep within, just like a spring comes from deep within the ground. And so in spiritual terms, in levels of Tiferes, it means that from the level of atik, the higher level of keser, the inner part of keser, came forth, chachma, came forth the spring. So this is what it means, umayin yatzah mi beis Hashem. A wellspring leaves from the house of Hashem. The spring leaves the house of God. This is a level of chachma, wisdom, curiosity as it comes from Chachma, directly from the inner part of Keser. I am Ashkas of a Pardes, the Pardes remind of the Ravak, Bishara Kollel Erech Mayan, who Bechinas Ma de Chachma Hanal. And this is a level of Chachma intelligence, which said the word Chachma, Ches, Chaf, Mem Hey, you could rearrange the first two letters to read Koyach Ma, the power of what? The power to be humble, the power to be inquisitive, the power to celebrate questions and to go beyond yourself, stretch your comfort zone. That's a level of Chachma. So this wellspring, which is a level of Chachma, which is the catalyst for a Jew to go beyond themselves, this can water the Nachal, the spring of Shittim, the valley. Nachal means a valley. Of Shittim, Shittim is a place. The Jews sinned in Shittim. The Balaturim in today's Chumash writes that 24 times in this week's Parsha, Parsha's Truma, it says the word Shittim. Shittim means cedar wood. 24 times. We know Chassidus explains at length, especially in the Maimar of Kuntres Um, that the word Shittim comes from the word shtus, which means folly, foolishness. And in the Mishkan, tabernacle, the bones of it were made out of Shittim, cedar wood. And it was covered in gold, or covered in tapestries, but it was made out of cedar wood, very strong level of wood, very powerful, very good wood. But the Atzei Shittim, the cedar wood, had to be used to hold up the Mishkan. It's like the bones of the Mishkan, the tabernacle for Hashem. And seemingly, what's the idea of Shittim? So he explains Shittim comes from the word shtus, foolishness. When the Jews camped at the end of Parshas Balak, the Jews camped in a place called Shittim, next to Moab, the Moabites, and the Jewish men. They sinned. They got a little bit too close with the Moabite woman, and Hashem got very upset, and he caused a plague, and 24,000 Jews died. 24,000 young Jewish men all died during that plague. And Pinchas came, exactly, as Mike says, he made a shish kebab, and he did what he had to do to stop the plague. So it says the word Shittim in this week's parsha 24 times, in Parsha Truma, because of the 24,000 Jews who died in the place called Shittim. Shittim means shtus, foolishness. The Jewish people at that time, you could say, they weren't prepared yet for the world. They weren't yet prepared to be next to the Moab, the Moabite woman, and to handle them. And they fell for them very quickly. And the reason why the Mishkan was built out of Atzei Shittim, the Balaturim says, is to atone for what will take place 40 years later, or 39 years later, the Jews sinning in Shittim, a place called Shittim. But in more than that, as we're seeing over here in Kuntres Um, the word Shittim comes from the word shtus, which means foolishness, folly. And Bechinas HaShtus L'Umazeh Sheishapech L'Shtus T'Kedusha, to take the shtus, the foolishness, which comes from the other side, not the side of holiness, and to convert it to become the foolishness of holiness. Hainu b'avodah poil. This is actual effort, hard work, and toil. The Bechinas Shtus T'Kedusha. To use that same foolishness into shtus of kedusha, shtus of holiness, shleil pi das v'cheshbon canal, not going according to any calculations. There is a chassid today. Maybe tomorrow, I'll bring the video. But in the 1960s, he was a professor in a university, and although today they say, Rabbi Weinstein said, it's like the 60s on steroids. But in the 1960s, there was a tremendous revolution of upheaval. America was very prosperous back then. I guess taxes weren't as high back then. America was very prosperous back then. Baby boomer generation, and people became very materialistic. And the young generation rebelled against it and says, what, life's about having a bigger car, a nicer house in the suburbs. Life can't be all about being materialistic. And there became many extreme movements, hippie movements and other movements. And there was a Jewish professor in a college who was quoted in the newspaper as saying that the only way to fix all the issues in society is to make a revolution. And he was quoted that as saying in the papers. And later on, Baruch Hashem, this professor found Chassidus, and he realized that revolution isn't changing what's outside of you, it's changing what's inside of you. And he became a chassid of the Rebbe, and he went into Yichidus by the Rebbe. And when he was in Yichidus by the Rebbe brought up the article that was written about him several years before that, and the Rebbe says, this article that you wrote, and he became very embarrassed. What's the Rebbe going to say now? And the Rebbe says, you have to have that same attitude now. You can't change it. He says, the only way to do it is to make a revolution, but now you have to make a revolution of Yiddishkeit. No. Yeah, so this is to take everything that was used for negativity and to use it, the same shtus, the same